Recap, Tales of Herding Gods, Chapter 537. Chapter Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. The cloud vapor above Huang Yue's head churned like a living mist, a manifestation of his primordial spirit drawing in and exhaling vital qi. At this moment, his gaze fixed upon the figure on the mountain, and the vapor cloud swelled, expanding until it covered an area of half a field. The vital qi within the vapor cloud gathered and condensed into droplets of rain that faintly descended toward the ground. Yet when those droplets landed upon the young man's head, they dissipated into vapor once more, rising back into the cloud above. Thus the cycle continued endlessly, a ceaseless circulation of breath and essence. The mountain had been raised through the vital qi runes of Saint Woodcutter and Fu Rilo, not forged through true creation, and thus it did not tower too high. Huang Yue ascended it with swift strides, reaching the summit in but a few steps before halting while still over 100 yards away from Jiehuali. When I met you upon the battlefield, I nearly perished at your hands. Huang Yue's aura surged like a storm breaking loose, his fighting spirit overflowing in torrents. Though he had once been defeated, not a trace of fear lingered within him. Instead, his boundless will to battle ignited even fiercer than before. He was a man intoxicated by combat, one who knew no fear. I have long sought you, yearning to avenge my defeat. Huang Yue's voice trembled with excitement. May Senior Brother grant me this chance. Jiehuali slowly turned, his gaze settling upon him. Yet the devil eye embedded within the handle of the demon knife on his back remained closed, unmoving. His right foot shifted subtly, the tip angling diagonally. His stance split into two directions. His left foot pointed toward Huang Yue while his right foot angled toward another figure ascending the mountain. In the next instant, that woman arrived before them. Huang Yue's expression darkened as he spoke coldly. Chen Yuan, do not meddle in my affairs, otherwise I shall kill you as well. Chen Yuan was likewise a divine arts practitioner of Supreme Emperor Heaven. When Huang Yue and the others had first entered the Sand Table world, they had rushed toward the place where the axe and spear intersected. Yet when all gathered there, its meaning faded, and each chose to conceal themselves in hiding. Only Qin Mu stood apart. He had raced wildly through the skies, his speed so great that clouds trailed behind him all the way to the edge of the Sand Table world, guiding all eyes toward his path. Thereafter, Qin Mu made no attempt to conceal himself. Instead, he began forging iron openly, drawing countless devil experts into pursuit. With the devil experts occupied, the practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven seized the rare opportunity to hunt those devils who remained along the route. Chen Yuan had perceived this clearly, and stationed herself along the inevitable path leading toward Qin Mu. There, she discovered Jiehuali standing upon the mountaintop, and also saw Huang Yue. Overjoyed, she ascended the mountain, intending to join forces with Huang Yu, the rank 3 expert, to eliminate the devil practitioner. Senior Brother Huang Yue, you and Senior Sister Yu He are both disciples of true God Pang Yu. You should understand that the greater situation takes precedence. Chen Yuan fixed her gaze upon Jiehuali, her expression grave. She then spoke solemnly. This duel is not merely about your personal grievance, nor is it a stage for you to pursue the extremes of your paths, skills, and divine arts. It concerns the fate of Li City and the destiny of our Supreme Emperor Heaven. Whether it is you or I, neither of us alone can easily overcome this man, but together we may bring him down. I will not join forces with you. Withdraw. Huang Yu's expression remained resolute as he shook his head. Since we are both practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven, I shall spare your life, but if you attempt to kill Senior Brother Jiehuali while we are engaged in battle, do not blame me for showing no mercy. His gaze sharpened as it fell upon Jiehuali, his desire to seek the Tao blazing intensely. A low chuckle escaped him. If I am victorious, he shall die by my hand. If I am defeated, he will be gravely wounded. At that time, you may strike and not gamble with the fate of Li City. All you need to do is watch. Otherwise, do not blame me for being ruthless. Chen Yuan frowned slightly, yet she stepped back. Huang Yue's excitement surged, his aura growing ever more fearsome. Jiehuali, please guide me. You are not my opponent. The so-called young true gods of your Supreme Emperor Heaven are nothing but a jest in my eyes. Jiehuali spoke indifferently. You do not understand what it truly means to be a true god. You believe that reaching the corporeal level of a young true god grants you such a title, yet you remain far from it. 3 elements define a young true god: the corporeal body, the primordial spirit, and the Tao. You have attained but one. I, however, am different. The demon knife upon his back trembled faintly, releasing a low hum. He continued calmly. Before descending to the lower bound, I had already achieved 2. Only my Tao remained incomplete. My descent to pay respects to Fu Riluo as my master is my path to seeking the Tao. Huang Yue, you are obsessed with paths, skills, and divine arts. You stand on the verge of attaining the 2nd requirement. I admire such determination. Come together. Do not cast away your life needlessly. Do not belittle me, nor my paths, skills, and divine arts. Without destruction, there can be no creation. Only by facing those stronger can one grow stronger. Army vanquishing mountain. Huang Yue roared, surging forward like a tempest. As he advanced, his attack erupted forth, his fist technique transformed into a divine art. In that instant, countless fist phantoms emerged, layering upon one another to form a towering mountain. In the next moment, it resembled an army-vanquishing star descending from the heavens. His fists carried a crushing weight, the winds they generated compressing the air until it burst in explosive waves, like thunder roaring across the sky. This strike revealed Huang Yue's astonishing mastery of fist techniques. In his previous battle against Jie Huali, he had realized his shortcomings. Now, facing this formidable foe once more, the pressure drove him to surpass his limits. His divine art, army-vanquishing mountain, approached perfection. Behind Jie Huali, the demon knife suddenly opened its eye. It spun and expanded, its color turning a deep blood-like crimson. Jie Huali extended his hand, drawing the blade. With a single slash, he cut toward army-vanquishing mountain. Instantly, a surge of knife light erupted, colliding with the myriad fist phantoms. The blade light rebounded, splitting into 10,000 streaks in an instant, forming a mountain of blades that shattered army-vanquishing mountain. The 10,000 knife lights merged once more into a single line, then descended straight toward Huang Yue's head. Huang Yue clasped his hands to seize it, but the demon knife split into 2. His expression shifted slightly. Flesh wriggled beneath his armpits, and 2 additional arms burst forth, catching the 2nd blade light. Yet before he could even exhale in relief, the 2 blades divided into 4. Huang Yue roared in fury. More flesh churned beneath his arms as 4 additional limbs grew, grasping the incoming strikes. Then despair flooded his gaze as the 4 blades split into 8, descending upon him. Chi! 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 The blade lights fell. Huang Yue lowered his head, watching the ones that vanished into the earth. 4 long, straight wounds appeared upon his face, stretching wider and deeper. Jie Huali flicked his demon knife, calmly sheathing it upon his back, while Huang Yue's body split apart into several pieces. He then turned his gaze toward Chan Yuan, whose expression had grown grim as she slowly retreated. "Leave. I do not kill women," Jie Huali said indifferently. Chan Yuan did not relax. She continued retreating steadily. Only when she had withdrawn a mile did she turn and flee with all her might. At that very instant, Jie Huali's muscles tightened. He surged forward with explosive force, breaking the sound barrier with a thunderous boom. Gripping his blade with both hands, he slashed downward. The blade reached Chan Yuan's back in an instant. She spun mid-air, casting out her sword pellet, which expanded outward. Yet before the flying swords could emerge, the blade had already cleaved down from the crown of her head. Jie Huali halted, sheathing his weapon before turning away. "I must let the man within the painting witness my master's blade techniques. I cannot afford injury, thus I slew you from behind." His expression remained calm as he tilted his head, listening for the distant hammering. "Woman, the moment you turned your back, your flaw was absolute. Never show your back before me." Behind him, Chan Yuan collapsed. Elsewhere, mountains crumbled as 2 figures battled fiercely among jagged peaks. Blade-like cliffs were pierced through, shattered into runes, and dissolved into the air. The battle ended swiftly. Yuhi touched the wound upon her face. Though her opponent had fallen, he had still managed to injure her. She lifted her gaze toward the knife light that flashed and vanished across the sky, her brows knitting together. "Jie Huali, you and that blacksmith both love to show off, yet I have no absolute confidence in defeating you." She turned to depart. "I must gather my junior brothers and sisters before eliminating you." The sand table world stretched vast and boundless, making it difficult to locate others. Battles erupted across numerous mountains. Divine arts practitioners clashed with experts of the devil race, unleashing their full strength without restraint. Thus, when opponents from opposing sides met, their battles often ended swiftly. The practitioners were either slain or crippled, rendering the situation exceedingly grim. Yet even within such brief moments, they could traverse dozens of miles in combat. Wherever they passed, mountains were severed and reduced to ruin. The devastation they wrought was a fearsome sight. Some even unleashed massive divine arts, capable of annihilating regions spanning 100 miles. Truly terrifying. Of course, this was but the sand table world, not reality. In the outside world, even practitioners of the Seven Stars realm, though formidable, could not wield such destructive force. The place where the axe and spear intersected remained tranquil. Sang-Hua set her trap with eager excitement. Lying in ambush, she waited silently for enemies to step into her deadly snare. Time passed slowly. After 2 hours, the young girl peeked out from her hiding place, her twin braids hanging down. Another 2 hours passed, and Sang-Hua sat atop the head of the axe, resting her chin upon her palm as she swung her legs in boredom. Another 2 hours passed, and Sang-Hua lay sprawled upon the axe, gazing at the sky as she muttered, "Where is everyone?" She suddenly sat upright, her expression growing restless. Where have they all gone? Wasn't this supposed to be the place where everyone would fight? Friend or foe, someone just come here. Outside the sand table world, gods and devils watched the battles unfold with both delight and unease. Though little time had passed, countless clashes had already taken place. When Qin Mu slew 3 devils and feigned death upon the ground to lure a fourth, many of the devil gods grew tense, cold sweat forming upon their brows for the female devil hidden upon a nearby mountain peak. Fortunately, she was not deceived and chose to retreat. The devil gods sighed in relief. "My lord, he is truly your successor," the black tiger god exclaimed with excitement. Saint Woodcutter remained expressionless, while Furiluo smiled faintly. Their gazes met briefly before shifting away. When the spectators witnessed Jie Huali slay the 2 young experts, Huang Yue and Qian Yuan with but 2 blades, many gods of Supreme Emperor Heaven broke out in cold sweat, their hearts filled with worry for their remaining practitioners. Yet the most anxious of all was Sang-Hua's father, God Sang-Ye, his fists clenched tightly, his palms slick with sweat. "Good daughter, do not come out, stay hidden." God Sang-Ye fixed his gaze upon the place where the axe and spear intersected, only to see Sang-Hua leap down from the axe. His expression shifted drastically as he murmured, "Do not go out, do not go out." Sang-Hua ran forward. "Do not encounter an enemy, do not encounter an enemy." A female devil approached her directly. God Sang-Ye nearly fainted. "She is going to die." Translator Atlas Studios, Editor Atlas Studios. In an instant, Sang-Hua's spirit stirred as though brushed by an unseen blade, and her steps halted upon the rugged ground. Opposite her, the female devil likewise sensed the creeping peril and ceased her advance. A steep and jagged mountain stood between them like a heavenly barrier, yet neither hesitated. With movements swift as lightning, both unleashed their divine arts, their powers striking forth at nearly the same heartbeat, imprinting themselves upon the mountain's face. The violent forces of their divine arts collided across the stone. For a fleeting breath, silence reigned. Then the mountain shattered with a thunderous roar, collapsing into ruin as clouds of dust surged skyward like mist veiling the heavens. Within that swirling haze, rune markings broke apart, scattering into radiant motes that burst like fireworks in the void. Sight was stolen from both women, yet their instincts remained sharp. Sword pellets and knife pellets shot from their sleeves, circling their graceful forms. Fine flying swords and curved blades danced about them, flickering like fireflies beneath a moonless sky. Sang-Hua had inherited her teachings from her father, God Sang-Ye, and thus walked the path of the sword. Her unseen foe was a disciple of Devil Knife Fuluotuo, cultivating the ruthless Tao of the blade. They met in the same instant. Like twin butterflies entwined in a deadly dance, they circled one another as their pellets whirled in fury. Exquisitely refined swords and knives clashed again and again, each collision scattering sparks that lit the dust-filled air. God Sangye's sword arts, you are Sanghua! Devil Knife Fulatuo's blade techniques, you are Biyi! Recognition struck them both at once. Amidst the flashing knife light and sweeping sword shadows, the two elegant figures closed the distance, unleashing divine arts at point-blank range. A streak of blade light pierced through defensive arts, while a streak of sword light grazed past flowing hair. The brilliance of their circling pellets illuminated their eyes, casting a radiant glow upon their forms. Though their physiques appeared delicate, the energy within them surpassed even that of Qin Mu. At the moment their gazes met, their bodies had already moved beyond conscious thought. Palms, elbows, shoulders, knees, and legs all became weapons as they assaulted each other like a storm unleashed from the heavens. With muffled groans, both suffered the force of the other's strikes and were blasted out from the storm of light. They tumbled violently down the mountainside like torn sacks, rolling across earth and stone for 6 to 7 miles before finally slowing. Yet before they could come to a complete halt, the sword pellets and knife pellets they had unleashed earlier arrived above them. Blades and swords rained from the sky, and in an instant, hundreds of curved knives and flying swords cascaded downward like a deadly tempest. The two figures rolled and flipped across the ground. Sanghua snatched the bow from her back, twisting and tumbling like a nimble leopard cat. With each roll, more than a dozen arrows shot forth in rapid succession. At the same time, 13 miles away, Biyi had already drawn her own devil bow, returning fire without hesitation. Behind them, the clash of knife light and sword light continued unabated. They circled around another mountain, battling across its slopes. The twang of bowstrings rang crisp and clear as arrows pierced through stone, riddling the mountain with countless holes. As they dashed at great speed, evading arrows, swords, and knives alike, Sanghua's gaze suddenly caught sight of two colossal figures, the immense axe and spear. They had unknowingly returned to the place where the two divine weapons crossed. Without pause, one leapt onto the towering axe, while the other sprang onto the black spear. Their bodies twisted like serpents as they advanced and attacked simultaneously. When they reached the apex of those divine weapons, the two figures exchanged countless strikes mid-air. Then suddenly, like falling stars, they plunged downward after unleashing a final flurry of techniques. Sanghua cast a quick glance, and her eyes flashed. Biyi was falling directly into the trap she had set earlier. Without hesitation, Sanghua activated the sword pellet formation she had laid. As the only daughter of God Sangye, Sanghua lacked nothing in treasures. Though she could not refine sword pellets as Qin Mu did, she had no shortage of them. She had arranged 7 sword pellets within her 7 stars sword diagram. The practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven disdained the complexities of algebra, favoring simplicity. They merely replicated the sword diagrams passed down by their ancestors, refining treasures according to those methods. The time saved was then devoted to cultivation. The 7 stars sword diagram was one such formation. It was not a complex diagram, and many practitioners simply copied it. Its power alone was not extraordinary, yet when supported by 7 sword pellets, its might was far from trivial. In a battle of life and death, even the briefest hindrance could determine fate. Falling into such a trap left no room for words. Sanghua moved without conscious thought. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Her curved bow released a barrage of arrow lights into the sword diagram. Biyi defended desperately, blocking left and right. Yet in the next instant, Sanghua's sword pellet flew forth. The flying swords aligned into a deadly stream. The first pierced through the devil's brow, the second followed immediately, and then the third and the fourth. Hundreds of swords, cascading in succession, bursting out from the back of her head. Biyi's body stiffened as she was engulfed by the torrent of swords erupting from the 7 stars sword diagram. I won? Sanghua stood stunned, her confidence surging like a rising tide. She retrieved her sword diagram and pellets, then departed from the crossing of axe and spear, continuing her search for new opponents. Outside the sand table world, God Sangye's sweat fell like rain. As a seasoned god, he knew full well his daughter's victory had come by fortune. Though Sanghua had endured massacre and honed herself through countless life and death struggles, she still fell short compared to Biyi, a devil expert tempered through hundreds of battles. Her experience was but a drop in the ocean. Defeating Bi Yi was fortunate, but fortune could not be relied upon again and again. Should she encounter other devil experts, would his final kin not perish before his eyes? Suddenly, God Sangye froze, his gaze fixed upon the sand table world. Several more battles had concluded, and the number of devil experts had dwindled drastically. Only 2 remained. Jie Huali, disciple of Fu Riluo, and Jiang Yi, disciple of True Devil Su Mo. Among the young experts of Supreme Emperor Heaven, only Qin Mu, Yu He, Sang Hua, and Xu Yao remained. Yu He had already joined forces with Xu Yao, and together they hunted powerful opponents through their numerical advantage. Of course, most of the enemies had still fallen to Qin Mu, the relentless grain thresher. It was through his slaying of 3 devil experts in succession that Supreme Emperor Heaven had seized the advantage. Jiang Yi's strength was formidable, yet after a direct confrontation, his injuries were severe, leaving him with diminished battle power. Perhaps this would grant Sang Hua a chance at survival. However, Yu He and Xu Yao also seemed to be wounded. God Sangye's heart trembled once more as he watched his daughter moving toward the forging youth. Meanwhile, at the edge of the sand table world, Jie Huali advanced, step by step like an ascetic monk, a demon knife resting upon his back. He did not employ divine arts, and thus his pace was slow. Each step was measured as though drawn by a ruler, exactly 1 foot in length, never a fraction more nor less. This was the rule of his blade. Devil race experts were typically bold and unrestrained, their moves grand and unburdened by detail, erupting with terrifying power without warning. But Jie Huali was different. He had studied under divine knife Luo Wushuang, a knife god. Luo Wushuang's techniques were rooted in calculation, governed by strict precision. Position, strength, footwork, body movement, even the contraction of muscle, were all measured with absolute rigor. There was no allowance for error. The flow of vital qi, the movement of the primordial spirit, intent and essence, all had to conform to exacting standards. Raised within such teachings, Jie Huali differed greatly from the practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven. To master Luo Wushuang's blade, one required profound mastery of calculation, nothing less. Though he had descended to Supreme Emperor Heaven by command and become Fu Riluo's disciple, he had not adopted his master's unrestrained nature. Instead, he adhered to Luo Wushuang's rules, restraining every action and word, maintaining perfect composure. He arrived before the wall of fire. Ahead of him stood Qin Mu, his back turned. The youth lifted a sword, examining its form within the glow of the flames. In contrast to Jie Huali's meticulous restraint, the youth radiated the same unbridled spirit as Fu Riluo. There was an indescribable heroism in the way he held his blade, an unteachable presence born of nature. Jie Huali's heart quickened for a moment, then he calmed it instantly. At that same instant, the youth seemed to hear the subtle change in his heartbeat, lowering his gaze to glance backward. But Jie Huali soon realized the youth had not looked at him directly. He had used the sword's mirror-like surface to observe what lay behind him. He feigned a glance to mislead me. If I had struck then, my judgment would have faltered, and he would have seized the advantage. Jie Huali's brows lifted slightly. Among experts, even the slightest misjudgment could decide victory or defeat. Sometimes a single moment was all it took. His experience far exceeds his years. Jie Huali inhaled deeply and straightened his shoulders. This was the youth his master could not forget. The one worthy of witnessing his blade, he bowed deeply. My master is Luo Wushuang. Qin Mu turned and set the sword upon the smelting table. I know. I remember him. Jie Huali remained bowed. My master instructed that if I encounter you, I must ask you to witness the blade techniques he founded. As he bowed, the demon eye upon the knife at his back opened. Its blood-red vertical pupil swirled, locking onto the youth. Qin Mu smiled faintly, resting his palm upon the smelting table. Streams of flying swords flowed toward him like grains of sand, gathering into a flawless sphere no larger than a thumb. I too wished to see his blade techniques. Holding the sword pellet, Qin Mu spoke calmly. You greet me in his stead. Your respect lies with him, not with me. Am I wrong? Jie Huali straightened and nodded. Qin Mu's smile deepened. He wields his blade with a single arm. Have you learned with one arm, or with two? Jie Huali's pupils shrank sharply. Qin Mu caught the change, his smile widening. Jie Huali, Show me his blade. In that instant, an invisible pressure descended upon Jehwali's Dao heart. Qinmu's question struck at its core. Lo Wushuang was known as the one-armed divine knife. If Jehwali had mastered the technique with one arm, his other arm would remain unused. A flaw. If he used both arms, then he had not truly grasped the essence of Lo Wushuang's blade. Either path led to imperfection. Jehwali had descended to this realm not only to fulfill his master's wish, but also to refine his own blade through battle and experience, to approach the realm of a true young god. Yet at their first meeting he had been seen through entirely, whether he drew his blade or not. There was no turning back. Outside the sand table world, Saint Woodcutter's eyes gleamed as he glanced at the black tiger god beside him. His Dao heart is clearly formidable, suppressing Jehwali upon their first encounter. Why did you claim it was weak? The black tiger god covered his ears, whining pitifully. It truly is weak. His expressions change constantly. Besides, didn't you also say his temperament was unstable and his Dao heart lacking? Saint Woodcutter's face remained unchanged. I did not. Do not speak nonsense. You heard incorrectly. The black tiger god pouted, and a vein throbbed upon Saint Woodcutter's forehead. At once, the tiger lowered his head and chuckled. This little tiger must have heard wrong.